Demon Slayer is big in Japan. Like, big. Everywhere you turn, there's a banner, a store display, or even a vending machine promoting the new movie. You can't escape it. It's everywhere. You could walk up to a grandma in Japan and ask her who her favorite character is, and she'll go, Zenitsu, but only when he's asleep. But then when you check Western media, IGN gives it a 6, Metacritic sits at 69 out of 100, and a lot of critics are saying it's boring, slow-paced, and tedious. The main criticism is showing the backstory of the villains, sometimes even after they die. The divide between the East and the West is pretty significant, leading me to believe it's not just a taste difference. This gap is cultural. You see, as a Westerner who's been in Japan for some time now, I think I've got a unique angle on why that is. Japanese society is very different from the West, and their taste in anime often reflects that. Walk into a manga shop here and you'll see titles completely different from what's hyped overseas. Love Full Metal Alchemist, the anime that sat at number 1 on my anime list for years? Good luck finding much FMA merch here. It's just not that popular in Japan. But Detective Conan? That's everywhere. Posters, merch, DVDs, it's like a national treasure. So why is Infinity Castle crushing the box office here, but getting mixed reviews back home? I think there's a few key reasons. Oh, and before I get into them, if you're still watching, please hit subscribe. Don't say I'll do it later, because I know you won't. My analytics prove it. If you've ever been to Japan, you know it's different. Go to Europe, the US, even other parts of Asia. You'll notice new food, new languages, but everywhere still feels kind of familiar. Japan? It's a whole different planet. It's like different species of human being. People act differently, almost as if the samurai never really disappeared. They just swapped swords for business suits. Because Japan spent most of its history completely blocked off from outsiders. For over 200 years during the Edo period, they had Sakoku, a closed country policy. No foreigners in, no Japanese out. Only in the mid-1800s did they crack the gates open. And even then, it was slow. After World War II, Japan fully opened up, but the mindset of being cautious around outsiders never really vanished. And honestly, that's fine. I want Japan to stay Japan. But seriously, make more kids, or this whole thing collapses. Here's the thing. Japanese people love Japan. They naturally gravitate towards stories that reflect their culture, their landscapes, and their history. If an anime takes place in Japan with Japanese heroes, Japanese tradition, and Japanese struggles, it hits way harder here than some fantasy land filled with European castles and knights. And Demon Slayer checks every single one of those boxes. It's set in the Taisho era, a uniquely Japanese period where modernization and tradition clashed. The characters wear kimono and hari that look straight out of old family photos. The backgrounds? Rural Japan. Mountains, shrines, dirt roads, even the values, duty, family bonds, sacrifice are deeply Japanese. That authenticity makes the story feel like it belongs to the nation itself. You might be thinking, but wait, is it every anime set in Japan? Nope. Tons are set in high school, which is basically its own genre, in a fantasy world with magic kingdoms, or even in futuristic space settings. A lot of anime don't feel national at all, but when one does, when it screams, "This is Japanese" to the core, audiences here notice immediately. Let me give you an example. I went to Tokyo Disneyland recently, and every shop was bursting with Baymax merch from Big Hero 6. Plushies, t-shirts, mugs, keychains, Baymax was everywhere. Why? Because the protagonist is Japanese. Even though the movie isn't nearly as successful as other Disney classics, it's by far the most prominent one here. Now, do you know what movie had practically no presence? Mulan, a story about a Chinese heroine saving China. Same thing with anime like Evangelion. It's about a Japanese boy piloting a giant robot to save the world. Here, it's legendary. It's still referenced, celebrated, merchandised like crazy. In the West, half the people I know skipped it entirely. And this is where Hollywood shoots itself in the foot. They keep trying to create these global movies that cater to everyone, They've got to have their checklist of gay character, Latino character, one funny black sidekick. They think if you see yourself on screen, you'll automatically care. But here's the truth, Mr. Disney. I'm half black, and my favorite character is a pale elf girl from a fantasy world. I can't remember the last time a black character was my favorite. Representation isn't just about skin color. It's about values, emotion, and story. Japan, China, India, these are deeply nationalistic audiences. If you want to win them over, the fastest way isn't by checking boxes. It's by giving them a hero that feels like it's theirs. Someone who embodies their culture, their struggles, their worldview. And Demon Slayer does exactly that. In the case of most classic shonen heroes, the premise is very simple. I want to be the best, I want to be the strongest, I want to save the world. These grandiose aspirations might be cool for kids, but in Japan, they don't really resonate with mature audiences. Tanjiro has a very different, touching goal. I want to save my sister. The core of the show is the protagonist trying to save his last living kin, his sister Nezuko. In Japanese culture, and especially in modern times when families are very small, family bonds are the most important. I remember not too long ago I was playing Magic the Gathering at the local game store and my wife called. I jokingly rolled my eyes and said, "The wife, what can you do?" And one of the guys, Yuta, said with a straight face, "Kazuko wa ichiban daiji," which means family is the most important. It made me feel so stupid, but that just showed me how seriously they take family matters. The author could have easily made the decision to turn Tanjiro into an anti-hero like Eren or Kaneki with the goal of killing all demons, but making him a kind-hearted soul who just wants to save his sister, even if it doesn't really change the plot too much, makes a huge difference in the perspective of the show. Tanjiro's empathy, even towards his enemies, is another way of constantly reminding us that he doesn't do this out of vindication, rather a necessity to save Nezuko, which brings me to the second part, which is emotional storytelling. The biggest strife critics have with Demon Slayer is explaining the backstory of the villains. Why bother tell the story of a character that just died? And he's a villain, who cares? If you ever watched a kabuki show, a traditional Japanese theatrical performance, you know that very often these shows have a tragic part that makes the audience break down in tears. For Japanese people to be successful, a story needs to be touching. It's not about the mission or the quest, it's about people. And to make the story about people, you have to add that emotional element that makes you connect with what you're watching. Remember when everyone praised Infinity War because in that movie Thanos was the hero? It's the same thing, only weaved together with Tanjiro's empathy. Japanese people call these types of shows nakimanga, aka tearjerkers. Shows like Clannad or Your Lie in April are super successful because the emotional element is their core and it makes it easier for us to care. Yes, Western audiences might yawn every time a flashback about a villain begins, but for the Western audiences that is critical to make the story whole. I do agree that not every single mini-villain needs one, but it makes sense that the deeper the show progresses, the more important the villains, and so are their backstories. We are nearing the end of the series, so every villain killed is a major boss that requires a deep backstory. Alright, let's be real for a second. Demon Slayer was already blowing up after Season 1. That last fight with Rui, people lost their damn minds. I still remember Twitter being flooded with clips and people calling it the best animated fight in history. Ufotable basically said, "You thought this was just another shonen? Watch this," and dropped movie-level animation for the Mugen Train arc. Season 1 wrapped up in late 2019. A few months later, boom, the world shuts down. Schools closed, jobs on pause, nobody leaving the house. Everyone's stuck at home, depressed, scrolling through Netflix at 3 a.m., living off cup noodles and convenience store snacks. And what do people do when they're trapped inside with nothing better to do? They binge anime. And right at that exact moment, Demon Slayer was sitting there as a shiny new toy everybody couldn't stop talking about. It wasn't just good timing, it was the perfect storm. October 2020, Mugen Train comes out in theaters. Picture this. Hollywood was basically asleep. No Marvel movies, no Disney blockbusters. Theaters were half empty or showing reruns. Japan's movie industry was desperate for something, anything to pull people back in. And then Ufotable shows up and like, yeah, we got this. We're gonna release a banger anime film and carry the entire Japanese box office on our backs. And they didn't just fill the gap, they obliterated it. People lined up outside theaters like it was a pilgrimage. Masks on, temperature checks, hand sanitizer in pocket, families, teenagers, even older couples, all braving the pandemic just to see this film. And in the middle of a global crisis with half the world too scared to even leave the house, Demon Slayer drops the biggest box office numbers in Japanese history. Bigger than Spirited Away, bigger than Titanic, bigger than anything that came before it. That's not just success, that's a phenomenon. But it wasn't just the animations and the fights that were so perfect. It was the plot of the movie. Everyone was stressed, anxious, not sure what tomorrow would look like. People needed something, anything that gave them an outlet. And here comes this movie that's basically one giant therapy session. Tragedy, grief, family bonds, sacrifice, it's heartbreaking, but it lets you cry. And in Japan, that's not a bug, that's a feature. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a collective emotional release. So yeah, Demon Slayer was destined to be big no matter what. Season 1 had already proven it had the chops. But would it have been this big? Would it have become the anime of the era? The one your grandma, your dentist, and the guy in the convenience store all know about? Honestly, I don't think so. COVID didn't just help it, it supercharged it. It turned Demon Slayer from a hit into a cultural earthquake. Another proof of that is the success of Lisa's opening song. It's a song about hope and strength that came out while people were shut down in their homes, fearful of the future. It resonated with Japanese audiences so hard that it got number 2 spot in Japanese billboards, only losing to Yoasobi's Racing Into the Night, and come on, that song is godly. So, what did we learn? Demon Slayer is a hit worldwide, there's no doubting that, but in Japan it's way bigger than you can imagine. And like always, there's a good reason for that. Different people like different things. While Western audiences prefer fast-paced action with only the necessary amount of background, the Japanese love an emotional storyline filled with sob stories to give them a reason to connect with the film. It also helps if the story and the heroes are also rooted in Japanese culture, and important values like family are at the center of the plot. Pour a smidge of luck into the mix and voila, you have a perfect recipe for success that made Demon Slayer the mega hit that it is. And as things look, it's not stopping anywhere soon, and I can't wait for the next movie to be even crazier. Thank you very much for watching. I had a blast watching this movie and making this review. I love anime, and now I've had 2 big reasons to write reviews about it. What did you think about the movie? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.